Hi, my name is Eva Steiner and this is my project Psychotherapists Around the Globe. I am interviewing the psychotherapists around the world and asking them the same 8 questions. I am wondering how mental health profession is in their country. Today we are going to... Thank you for taking this time for doing this interview with me. Before we start, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
My name is Maria Hajo. I'm 61 years old and I'm living now on a very tiny place. It's called Åland Islands. It's an autonomous region of Finland where we speak Swedish only. That's where I live. That's where I work. I am a psychologist. I studied in Vienna, Austria, and I am also a systemic family therapist.
Okay, so let's start with the first question. Tell me a little bit about your culture. What is some holiday or traditions that your country celebrates? And if your culture would be an emotion, what emotion would it be?
Because I have like two cultures in me, because I spent more than half my life in Austria. But now, since I've been living here for 11 years and I also was born and raised in Finland, I am choosing Finland. Also because there are some funny holidays which I didn't realize actually, or I didn't think about it. We have as specialities in the Nordic countries. We have the 30th of April, the evening before 1st of May, is a big holiday. Like, it's not free from work, but it's like people celebrate, and it's a lot of party going on. It has become like that because 1st of May is a free day for everybody. And last of April, it's just a big party. It's actually, I think it's no real reason. It's just a need to celebrate. Maybe also because spring is coming, I would guess. And another holiday that is very big in the Nordic countries is midsummer. And that's also understandable because summer is short and the nights are light. It doesn't get dark. And it's really a joy of life. And that's a real big holiday. That's the last or second last weekend in June, when the days are the longest. And that's really a big celebration. We have one day off work, usually the Friday before the weekend.
And how do you celebrate that one?
It's of course different. The young people, they always celebrate in their own way, but it's actually a family celebration. And you eat if you are lucky, you have got the fresh potatoes from, if you have had luck, you can eat those fresh potatoes and they taste incredibly good. They have no skin and nothing. And it's really a celebration of life. And to that you eat, that may sound strange, in mid-European ears, you eat seal, herrings, and all kinds of fish, seafood. And then some, I don't know, cakes and sweets and so on. And you also have a fire if it is allowed. And you go to the sauna and you go swimming. And it's really wonderful celebration. And then we have another one that I came up in my mind, which is very unique for Sweden, actually, and Åland also, and the Swedish minority in Finland. And that is Santa Lucia, which is on 13th of December. And that actually came from Sicily, Italy. There was a young Christian girl who, well, this is a long story, but she brought light and she brought food to the Christians that were pursued in the catacombs in Sicily. And I don't know the reason why this culture has gone through Europe and is rooted in Sweden now. I guess it's because of this story with the light into the dark, because 13th of December, it's very dark. It's not a very nice time of year here in the Nordic countries. So it's also very beautiful, and it's not very religious, but still it's like meditative, and it's like beautiful, a little bit like Christmas. The waiting for Christmas, but in a very beautiful way. And you celebrate it in churches, and there's a young girl with white clothes, and then she has these candles on a crown. She did have that in Sicily. I don't know when that was, hundreds of years ago, to see something in the catacombs. But now it's like just bringing light into the dark, and they go in elderly
retirement homes.
Yes, and they go to schools, and they bring joy, they bring light into the darkness.
It's really unique holidays.
Yes, that's why I brought them up, because the other ones, they are common.
And if your culture would be an emotion?
I thought about that as well. I now define myself as a Finnish-Swedish person, although I have both cultures in me, the Austrian as well. But what is this Finnish culture, I would say it's very reliable. I don't know, this is maybe not an emotion, but these are the words that come to me. It's calm, it's reliable, trustworthy, and maybe a little bit hidden, like the emotion is very private. Maybe, oh yes, a little bit melancholy also. Finnish people that's also kind of funny. I don't know why tango is one of the most popular, or used to be, maybe not today, but it used to be one of the most popular kinds of dance and music in Finland. And that's absurd because it's from Southern America, but it has something very melancholic and dramatic. So this is interesting, I think.
I was reading, maybe I am wrong, but that the Finnish people are the number one people in happiness. They are the happiest in the world.
Yes. And we made a lot of jokes about this because it's like if you are a melancholic kind of person, then, well, if the sun shines, you're happy. You know, so I don't know the reason, but I think there might be some truth in this. The Finnish people, they have always been hardworking and trying to be, do the things right. They have, I think, quite a good reputation. They want to do things well and they take things very seriously. And if I should do this, I will, and like that. So I think maybe, yeah, well, if something is good and okay and I'm safe, then I'm happy.
Yeah.
I don't expect it automatically to be so. So I'm grateful, maybe.
Okay, the second question. How did you become a psychotherapist in your country and what is your therapeutic approach?
Yes. Well, as I mentioned, I grew up in Helsinki, Finland, but then I wanted to go to study in Austria and I studied psychology. And when I had my degree in psychology, I considered I want to continue because I didn't feel I had all the tools. I didn't have any tools, in my opinion. I just had a lot of knowledge, but the real tools I didn't have. So that's why the road was clear. I wanted to go on with psychotherapy. And during my psychology studies, I don't know, it just was the only thing that really meant a lot to me, that was family therapy, because it to me was so logic and so impossible to think that you could help and heal a human being without considering the relationships. So that's how my brain is wired, I think. It's like a belief. So I chose this family therapy.
And do you maybe know in Finland how it works, and more particular in Åland Islands?
How the education works, you mean?
How do you become a therapist there?
Yes, actually, I must say I do not know this exactly. And also, as far as I understood, it is changing. It has used to be, and it was in Austria, a completely private education. You have to pay a lot of money. So you have to work a lot and try to somehow pay for this education. And also I have understood that it was like this in Finland, but they are now working on a change that has already happened in Sweden, that at least, the psychotherapist education will be in two parts, and that you can do the first part as a part of your university studies. If you study psychology, you can study psychotherapy. I don't know how that is included and how they count. I don't know. But you can start and make the first part inside the university, which means it doesn't cost anything. So that's great. And I think, if I understood this right, the second part is not yet in the university.
And the second part is basically self-pay, and you choose the direction, psychotherapeutic direction.
I think that might be the way it is, but I'm not going to say I know it because
yeah. Okay, and how society looks upon psychotherapy and psychological help?
I think that the younger people, they can accept it somehow easier, at least on Åland Islands. Now, I do not know how it is in Finland, and Åland is very small. Here are 30,000 inhabitants on 6,000 islands. So 11,000 persons in Maria Hajo, where I work. So it's really a small community. But in my opinion, maybe younger people, they come more easy than older, and women easier than men. And then you have to separate it also, the hospitals and doctors. We have this view that a person either is ill or is healthy is a very, like, it's a hospital view on things. And through history, I think the doctors are in a very high position in the society, and what they see and what they say has a big importance. And of course, they study the human being as the individual and what problems does this individual have in its body. So this idea of mental issues, and even more so in family therapy, where you talk about relationships, is very far away from the things a medical person studies. Very understandable, but like, I hope there is a change coming up, but I'm not really sure about that. So I think maybe so in Scandinavian countries also, it's very difficult to become a psychologist. So if you are a psychologist, then you have you have achieved something. So this is it's hard to get into the university to study psychology. So, but in society as a whole, they know about it, and there are some things also by law that, for instance, in my kind of education, I work also in a family counseling place, and that's in the law that every community in Finland has to provide this kind of help for families with children under 18 years of age. So that's good.
So basically the family can get help through insurance. This is how I understand you, or they need to pay for help?
No, they don't pay, and it's not insurance. That this goes through taxes. So it's really something very good. But I also think if it would not be by law, it wouldn't exist. So they do exactly what is written, what should be provided. But at least it shows like how the politicians think, and at least the society has the view families with children should get help without any costs. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in general, how do you get help? Let's say I need psychological, psychotherapeutic help. Do I need to pay for it, or can I go to the hospital and receive help?
Yes, both. And also you can have an insurance on your own that covers the costs. So that's one possibility. And then also the big enterprises have often some special possibility for their workers to go without costs, but not a lot of times, maybe 5 or so. The way to get help without any costs is through hospital, like you said. But it's, of course, hospital is hospital. So you have to be quite ill or quite sick to go that path. And it's not easy. You know, you have to prove how ill you are. If I say it like that, you have to like prove that you cannot work, for instance, or you cannot live this normal good life. And then you have to have some appointments with a psychiatrist, a rather long way to go, but I understand it. It's very expensive to be in the hospital and get the care there, but it exists. Luckily, we have it for persons who really have big difficulties. It doesn't cost anything. They can go in hospital, and then if you are healthy enough to function, but you still suffer, or you are on the edge of not making it anymore. For instance, a person who is working and gets exhausted and sad or depressed or something, that can nearly not work. And so there is another way of getting help. Also goes by a psychiatrist, but then you find your own psychotherapist, and this word I do not know in English. There is it's like an insurance. They take a part of your costs, and then you go there, and it's a private thing, but you pay half of it about. There is a fixed price what this social insurance pays. It's about 60 euros. And the rest you have to pay yourself. So it depends on what this private practitioner demands. You pay for the rest. But it's a help.
And if we go inside the therapy room and combine it with the question how society looks upon psychotherapy, you mentioned in the first question that maybe something stays hidden. How open are people in the therapy room regarding the emotions, for example?
Well, this is individually different, of course. There are people who have no problem at all, and they're very open, and they cry a lot, and they laugh, and it's all there. And then there are people who are like shy, or don't like the situation, are quite uncomfortable with it, and maybe for the first time. It's also often a big difference if people have been talking somewhere before. Then they are not so shy, but also the personalities, like, they just are different. Some people are very verbal and talk easily and a lot, and very, like, they can very well explain things, and other people, they don't like that.
The fourth question, what is your society teaching regarding child-parent relationship, and whether these values of society also influence how you design your interventions as a therapist?
Society, or the taxpayers together, they provide for help for families with children. But the point from this is to reassure that the children have a healthy and secure environment as they grow up. So every support for the parents is good for the children. So that's the philosophy in this society where I live. And if the environment of the child is not healthy, then the child should not live there. That's the way the society here functions and thinks. And of course, it's a very big step. But in the worst cases, the children need to live somewhere else. Because if parents are too sick with mental illnesses or abusing, addictions, or abusive behavior, then this is not good for a child to live in. This is above everything else. We also, where I work, there is an exception if we get worried that the child isn't well taken care of, let's say like that. We have, through law, the obligation to contact the social services, and we do it. So that's above everything. And of course, you cannot always see what happens you cannot, but if school or the child care or hospital, if somebody sees or gets, only if you don't have to see blue marks on the child, but if you get a worry, if the child says something or shows some behavior and you are worried as a professional, you have to tell your worries to the social services, child protection services, and they are then the ones who will follow up and will check it out. It's not my job.
And in general, like outside of maybe the abuse, how is the parents, what is the position of the parent in your society? How important it is when a child grows up that the relationship is maintained?
To me, I think it's like when the child grows up and it turns 18, it's an adult. And then it will, this is payback time. It's relational stuff, which it will be whatever it will be. Hopefully it will be great and it will be good and they will have a good relationship. But that's very private. That's about each person to make the best of it, I'd say.
So the way I am understanding you, what you put in, this will show in the relationship later on.
Yes.
Okay, and if an adult client would come to you and say, I don't want to see my parents anymore, I want to cut contact with them, how would you react as a therapist?
Yes, we have had those cases. I have had them, and that's very interesting because, of course, there's a history to that. So if I am respectful towards my clients, I will try to dive into that history. It's always the best. It is if you are okay with your own history and with your own parents. You can forgive for something and you can be grateful for something. That's the best. So I will always try to look at the history first. But then there are cases where you just come to the conclusion this will be better for this person. For now, we don't know. Maybe in 5 years it will be different. But for now, this person needs, for some reasons, to have this distance. Maybe if there are sometimes parents can be very dominant, and the children have a lot of work to do themselves to grow and to know who they are, because they have been living, like, I won't say in the shadow, but like they haven't had the possibility to get their own personality because they have been so under the domain of mother or father. So these kinds of dynamics exist, of course. And then it will be a journey for this young adult or for this adult person to hopefully find themselves, who am I, and hopefully forgiveness.
What are the learned beliefs regarding client therapists in relationship, and can the relationship continue outside the therapy once the therapy process is over?
At least what I have learned, it's very strict, because a client has the right to be completely open, and I have no right to interfere outside the therapy room with this person. Except if the person comes towards me. I said Åland is very small, so I meet these clients a lot in town when I go to the grocery store or something. There are everywhere clients, but it's always up to the client. I see them, and if they want to greet me, I greet back. If they don't want to greet me, I respect that totally. So we just don't see each other. That's the way it is. And if you're asking about the relationship, once the process, it's the same. It's absolutely the same. It's up to the client. If they want to talk about, if they have no problem, I went to you 5 years ago, that was great, it helped me, and so fine. But I am always in my role. I will not get out of my role. That's not really possible. I don't know, maybe after 20 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have this feeling that it's better that I stay in my role.
And is there any law for psychotherapy?
You mean about this relationship between psychotherapist and client?
But in general, probably there could be a section about this, but in general, is there any law for psychotherapy or maybe psychology?
There are laws, but they are very specific ones, like we have. I don't know about this relationship. Probably there is, but this is such a strong ethical question. This is already during the beginning of the studies and continuing. And so it's an ethical question. Probably, I really don't know if there is a law about it. The secret stuff, that's a law. And also that you have to have had this and this education. It has to be approved by the social ministry. There's the strict guidelines, what you have to have had in your education, that you will be approved. That's something, but these ethical questions, maybe they are more in the education. I don't know if there's a law, really.
If there is a therapeutic abuse, what can client do in that case?
And this obligation we do have. Wherever we work, we have to have a sign or a note that is readable for every client that comes into the room, that says where they can go if they are not satisfied with anything. If they feel they need to report something went wrong, something wasn't good, they felt bad, they felt uncomfortable. So they need to know. In Åland, it's just one person. I don't know how it is in bigger places, but we have this one name of a person and a phone number, and this is called this name I won't know in any language, but it is like this is the job this person has. It is a surveiller of, if customers are, I don't know. Also, if you buy something on internet, you have this, there is some kind of possibility to reclaim or to report.
I know what you mean, like a consumer rights person, something like that. Mm-hmm.
So that's something we have.
If I distinguish between psychotherapy and psychology, do you have this distinction there regarding the professions? Is there a profession psychotherapist or family therapist, and then profession psychologist, or you need to be a psychologist to then, study extra psychotherapy and then you can work?
No, it's different. Psychology is an own degree. And at the end, when you are a psychologist, usually you work in a hospital or you work in schools of psychology, and your main work will be the testing, clinical testing, like it's more like clinical stuff. And the psychotherapist can be somebody else as well. It must not be a psychologist. It can be a doctor, or it can be also a nurse, for instance, some job from this social
Humanistic,
or health.
social.
Yeah. In Austria, not. In Austria, you can then 100 years ago when I studied, you could also be, I don't know, a car mechanic. You could be anybody. And then with certain pre-studies, you could go to a psychotherapist, which I found was very good because they have a good stuff to give. If your own way has been like complicated and you have been somewhere else, you're a designer or I don't know, a swimmer, anything, and your path is leading you towards something like psychotherapy, I think that's very good. You are very motivated and you have had your own suffering, probably, and your own reflections, and that's why you want to get to be a psychotherapist. So I find this is a very good way. But as I said, I don't know if it is so today. It used to be like that. But in any case, it's an own package, like psychotherapist. More focused on talking with people. Of course, not only, you can also have music therapy as a direction or a body therapy. There are different schools, but it's not like this testing. Testing is psychology.
Okay, the sixth question. Is supervision a must for a therapist in your country?
Yes, that is a must. That's an easy question to answer.
It's also by the law.
This social, ministry, the highest surveilling instance through which I also got my permission to work at all. It was a long way, I can tell you. It was 1 year of fight because they were so exact. I had to deliver every book I have read during my education in Austria to be accepted in Finland. So they are very exact. They wanted to know exactly what I have studied and which books I have read and everything. But it was okay in the end. So this instance demands that if you work in a private practice, which I also do, you have to have supervision. But they don't really, that's what they say, but I don't know if they really check up on it. But everybody does it because you need it. And it's like also an ethical question.
And what are the most common complaints that the client comes to therapy for?
Here it's a different, which kind of therapy you are doing, because in my systemic family therapist, as I am, of course, people come with conflicts and communication and relationship issues. That's number one. I think that's all of it. But if you are like, you have this anxiousness and phobias, maybe this is cognitive behavioral therapy, probably. So they would be guided to this direction, more. For instance, so this is depending a little bit.
If we look at the background of your country, or maybe even specifically Åland Islands, would you say there is something in the history that is influencing mental health today? Like a generational trauma?
Generational trauma, absolutely in Finland, not in Åland. Because Finland had the Second World War really badly, and that these traumas still live because it goes through the generations. I know it by myself, as I had both parents were children, but they were in war, and that makes something with people, and it goes on several generations afterwards. So Finland as a country, absolutely, they have generational trauma from the war. Åland, on the other hand, not, because Åland, that was, 200 years ago, that here we belong to Russia. Well, long history, but anyways, I would say no, that part no. But something specific for Åland Islands is, of course, the living on a tiny island or a group of islands in the middle of the sea. They have a history of seafarer, and these people who went to work on the sea, they were often gone for months, sometimes 100 years ago, so they were gone for a year, and then they come back to the family. Now this also makes a difference, because the women on these islands, they had the how do you say, the agricultural stuff and the childcare, and they managed a lot alone. And the husbands were on sea, working on ships, traveling around the world, and had quite a different life. So when they met and when they meet, also today, it's not like that dramatic, but it's still like that. So there's a special something about this being away from each other and then meeting, and being away and meeting. So it's quite intense often, You come back after, 2 weeks, 4 weeks away, and well, it's special. Mental health, I don't know if I would say mental health, but it's a difficulty, to manage to stay happy or satisfied in a relationship when people are, it will be probably in the USA like soldier life, going somewhere and then coming back. It's always quite demanding way to live. So that's often on Åland Island. And then, well, this is not a mental health problem. It's rather, it's a good thing. People are very much on helping each other, because that's what you had to be able to manage by yourself earlier. And this, if you are in trouble, you are depending on that your neighbor helps, because there is nothing. There's no system. There's nothing big around. There's not much. So people are very keen on helping each other.
If you would share one tool, belief, or approach that is a must-have for you as a therapist, what would that be?
A belief that I have is really that the human being that gets born to this earth is good, period. And then what happens? Things happen. So that's my belief. And then I also believe change is possible, but not at any price. So you have to learn to see what is good for me, and where do I go somewhere trying to be somehow, somewhere, somebody who I'm not. So that you need to, maybe that's important, but that's not really it's a belief. But the most important belief to me is really people, everybody is good. They're trying at their best. Even people that hit their children, they are trying. Maybe they were hit much harder when they were kids, and they think they have done a good job in not hitting so hard. Of course, this has consequences, but in my mind, I believe in that the people are good. They want to be good. Also, children who have a terrible behavior and really difficult behavior, they want to be good children. They don't want to be bad ones, and they don't want to get so much trouble. And So that's a very profound belief that I have.